Hello everybody, so my name is Inga. I also work in the film industry. I'm a line producer here from Latvia, and I think the reason why I'm here is that I talk like I have had some mental, like I'm just gonna do the like a little bit icebreaker here, that I've had some issues with anxiety and depression working on film sets. So I know this in and out, and I have also talked about it publicly, and I think it's not an issue to we have to talk about this issue. It's not something we should keep to ourselves, because there are a lot more of us than we think, actually. So I'm going to introduce all the guys here, and then I will explain how we do this discussion. So this is Alexandre Regol. He's first AD from France. Mm-hmm. This is Māris Siliņš. He's a psychotherapist from Latvia. Andrejs Moraveks, makeup artist from Latvia. Ondřej Moravec. He's program director of One World Festival from Czech Republic. And Yuval Shapira, director from the US and Israel. So the structure of the discussion today is going to be that, first of all, I will give each panelist their 5 to 7 minutes to talk about the topic, because it's like such a broad topic. So about their main concerns, issues in regarding to mental health on film sets. In between each of these, we're going to have like a short discussion and Q&A in between ourselves. And then we're gonna continue on with a broader discussion where everybody will have a chance to talk about what are the main issues. Then we're gonna maybe crystallize some of them and talk about some potential solutions. And also in that part of discussion, I'm gonna welcome you guys to ask questions and to maybe discuss some of the issues you have about mental health on film sets. And yeah, so to introduce a little bit to the topic, I was reading a lot about the topic in the recent weeks, and I found one very good research that Looking Glass made in 2019 in regards to UK film sets and mental health, and what they it was actually very astounding, the findings. The people on film sets were twice as likely to experience anxiety than compared to the national average, which I think is a lot. Then work-life balance struggle, 78% of people said that they have the struggle with work-life balance, compared to 27% with the regular population. And what seemed the most terrible fact is that 55% of people working on film sets have considered suicide. Yeah, right. And in the US in 2021, they had IFC had a huge strike, and one of the reasons was also that they highlighted bullying, lack of control over long working hours, and social, it was on set, and in regards to post-production, it was social isolation, alcohol, and drug dependency. And one anonymous commentary said that I know many various HODs, myself included, and others, who at some point during a film reached to the point they would like to have a small accident on set so that they can be off for a week, because the pressure is too much. So this was my introduction. I think it's a very important topic, and maybe Māris Siliņš can start with how important is mental health and how work influences it.
Yeah. So, good morning, and I'm glad to be here and to meet you all. I can say very much. I am a man from the side. I am not from industry, and from that point it's quite an interesting and it's in the same time challenging for me to be here, because I don't know exactly. I was not so much in as Inga and you all are, but in the same time, so I think that the issue of mental health, of course, is very important for all of us, and it's my profession to take care of this. And so to say shortly, I don't think I will tell you very much which you didn't know, so that mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and also social well-being. And I can say it affects whole our life. It affects a way how we perceive the world, how we react to the world, how we involve with the world. And I can say that in general, if we think about quality of life, I can say that there is a lot of outer things which influence that, but from my side, I believe that our quality of life is very much determined on our mental health and, of course, health in general. Because if we didn't feel well, so if we have a lot of possibilities or a lot of money or everything, we can't enjoy it properly. And so I can say that, of course, the health in general is important for this enjoying life, but the mental health is the most dynamic part, and I can say, in a sense, most fragile part of our health. So I can say if it depends about our somatic health, okay, so we can a lot more predict what will happen with our somatic health. Our mental health is much more dynamic and unpredictable, and so I can say in general we all, in a sense, somehow, if we don't think about mental health as like illnesses, but like being in a life and experiencing life, I can say all we are in questions about mental health, and every one of us sometimes feel shattered, sometimes feel out of the game, and so all we know what it is all about. And of course, I can say that there is some genetic factors which determines our mental health. Of course, it's meaningful. So our early life experiences and our family experiences is very much on a deal with that. But if we think about everyday life, so what to say? There is two main factors which influence our mental health. The one thing is our personal life and relationships, and the another one is our job life. And so I think that still it's not so very clear which is most important. Okay, psychologists say that relationship is more important part of what determines our mental health. But I can say that if still we spend so much time in our job life, so much efforts to put in it, so I can say that sometimes it's a very equal, and for some people I can say even more that the job life is more influential factor than its relationships. and somehow to go straight to the topic. So when I got this invitation, I've been thinking quite a lot about try to imagine how to be in this industry. And I can say, as I told, I'm a man from the side, so I can say I'm rather professional spectator. Yeah, but when I try to somehow get into the topic, so I understand that to me, the greatest challenge in this industry, I believe, is how to survive and how to keep going on creative aims. When you have to deal with so much management of the technical questions, money questions, and in so intensive situation, and so when I hear what you told, so I believe that it's quite understandable for me, because when we are try to be creative and try to do creative job, so in that sense we have to be open-minded and open-hearted. And so it means that we are much more sensitive and much more fragile in that sense. And if we have to put all this together, so I can say it's a really difficult effort, and so in that sense I'm very interested to be there. I hope I can have some contribution as a man from the side, but I'm very interested to learn how it's going on and how it is to be in this industry, and so in that sense it's challenging and interesting for me. Okay.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, any of you guys, at this moment for Māris? No? Okay.
Maybe just one. So in our field, like there is this one of the main topics for me would be concerning mental health, would be job insecurity, which is one of the factors that doesn't help with the people in this industry, and in like your patients and like the people that you help. Would you say that it's like something that is a huge recurring problem?
And maybe details, what do you mean by job insecurity?
Precarity of like when you don't know what will be the next day.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I believe that this feeling of stability and some kind of some perspective, I believe it's a very important part for being secure. Mm-hmm. And I believe that security is one of the key points for mental health. Mm-hmm. When we don't feel secure, so then it can block everything. And so I believe it is a very important point. So this feeling of stability and security and some kind of predictability. Mm-hmm. And in a sense, I understand in your industry, it's a very great challenge to keep on with that, because I believe it's quite unpredictable in general. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's a good question how to maybe maintain more stable environment. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and at this point, yes, Alexander, maybe you can continue about your main talking points.
So, yes, so I'm Alexander. I come from France, where I work as an assistant director. And so I was invited to maybe specifically give an opinion, or maybe more like a window on what are the conditions of work on sets in France, and I can talk about that. But one other interesting thing for me is to talk about job insecurity, because it's one of the things that I think in France we have not in common with your system here or with like the American system. So on set, my job consists of doing some sort of link between the production problematics and the effectiveness and what will be the script shoot like. But so I will put that aside and talk a little bit about context of the film industry in France. So everything starts for us from the 30s, I would say. The post-Second World War situation about film industry tells a lot. So in the 30s, the government in place tried to implement some social things for workers in general, so in the labor code, so that people could actually, with or without unions, be able to have their own branch, salary grids, and that would be more important than the average labor code or whatever is like general for other people in the country. So in the cinema industry, it started like this in the 30s, and later post-war in the 50s, we had the first document that said that the workers in this industry would have specific rules, and the films also would have to follow some of those rules to be considered legal and so on. The situation after the Second World War was that a lot of American movies were in theaters because the industry was basically destroyed here. So one idea was to put up a system that would benefit both productions and workers in a way that there would be an amount of public money put into the national production, and there would be a protection system for workers in order to be able to do the movies. And so one of the key systems in that building is a security system for the workers, because we are not freelance in our country. I would say 99% of people that work in film sets or in events in general, like this one, or like a concert hall, or even comedians, they are under the same rule, and we are all employees. We are all employees of a production company or any kind of company that works in the industry, and that can declare us as employees, which actually makes a big difference, because so the job insecurity is, for me, like when I started, maybe so I started working 7-8 years ago, and I didn't feel so insecure looking for jobs because like the system works as is. You need to work a certain amount of hours in a year, and if you work enough, that gives you an access to unemployment desk that will actually give you some money when you don't work. And that's one of the bases of the system for both actors and technicians. Actors have also the right to have the same system. So that's a global little thing that's already a difference. And so another thing that I am seeing is that apart from being freelance in most of the countries around the world, unions are also a big thing that can be put in comparison. So one of the ways to achieve those agreements between workers and producers in our industry was to put up some unions. So producers have their own unions, workers also. Apart from like the professional organizations like you have probably here, like the DOP union, but it's not a union, actually it's an organization. So we also have all of these professional grounds that work separately to understand what are the workers' needs. So let's say the electricians, the decoration teams, the actors also have their own professional organizations. They gather, and all of this is united by, let's say, 2 unions that do like annual meetings and talk about the conditions of work of each professional organization, and that leads to some demands and to some let's say people are agreeing on a lot of points. Sometimes it's not the case, but most of the time it unites the industry to go in one direction. even though sometimes directors and technicians don't have the same needs or don't perceive the thing the same way. Let's give an example. Like a few years ago, the directors union and the more general technicians union were disagreeing on one thing. It was about the way to finance low-budget movies, and for directors, it's very important to be able to do low-budget movies. And one way to do that is also to pay people a little bit less in general, to be able to set specific rules, so you can still try to achieve something that is not in the mainstream and in the most wealthy industry, but you can still achieve something. So we have some specific rules. Let's say that movies under 1 million euros have really lower salary rates than the ones that have higher than 1 million, and so on. So these discussions lead usually to agreements like this. I think it's something that's positive. I don't know if there is something comparable in Latvia or in your other industries, if you have something like this. And apart from this, so security, or let's say system that gives our film industry some sort of liveliness, I would say. I've not been encountering a lot of mental health issues in my colleagues or in general. What I see mostly is exhausted people. That happens even though like the system can be really taking care of everyone in a way. Like the job insecurity is maybe less important than in other countries, but of course that doesn't erase all the problems. So we always have to be really careful on set or like in the schedules that we put up as production people, or as for me as planning the days of shoot. We are trying always to be really careful about each job, about the quantity of hours everyone is working each day during the week and at the end of the month, because that's one of the key things to keep the team together, because at the end you really want to make a movie, so you need people to be united. And one of the key things is to be able to pay everyone the amount of time they actually work, and so on. So, but of course we have also still a lot of problems to solve in, but for example 2019 would say was a huge change for equality as well in teams, for because everyone has problems with women harassment, and since these years there are more specific rules, and let's say you can call a green number if you want to call anonymously. There are some things that are put that gives an option if you don't feel comfortable with someone or with the setting, you know, like to talk to someone. It can be a psychologist, it can be someone from a medical institution, if whatever, but there are some possibilities to talk to someone at least. The first idea would be to talk to someone from your team, but sometimes it's not possible, as harassment can come from your direct hierarchy superior. So there are possibilities to pass that and try to talk to someone else as well. Yeah.
Thank you. So, because we're talking about so many different topics, maybe you have any comments on the work conditions and how they influence, like, because all of us are from other countries, so maybe somebody has a comment about.
Maybe I have a question, because how you describe it, it was kind of a fairy tale, you know. So I was like, is it really like that? Like in terms of what you describe is kind of a theoretical background, how it should work, and how France is trying to, on many levels, not only in the film industry, is trying to protect the workers. Yeah. So for me it would be interesting, because you mentioned that people are having anxieties on the set. Mm-hmm. So what do you think that is the source of the anxiety, and if you feel that if the system really works?
I would say that in general, in these industries and in these art fields, people put a lot of pressure on each other anyway. Like, it depends mostly on the personality of the people you work with. So, I think that when someone that likes to achieve some power on other people has more ability to do it because the conditions are there to do it, they will do it. So the fact that there is some more security for people, just, I mean, nobody can tell you fuck off and then your life ends there because it's your first job, it's the first time you're doing this, and then you, I mean, we have this security that anyway the system can still help you, even if somebody is being really mean to you. At least that helps, I think, because when you start in this film industry, you're always really anxious about, will they hire me again? Yeah, that's the main thing, and then you start being more secure. But yeah.
I can imagine like myself to going somewhere and say, oh, this director was mean to me, so please do something with it. Yeah. I can't imagine it because then it would be like we're very like disqualifying myself.
Your career.
So that's why I ask if it's really works like that in France, that you can do it, and if people are really doing it.
It always depends. Like, I mean, if it's your dream job and still they are being harassing, like, I mean, I wouldn't mind walking out. Like, it's just the way I think it should be. But of course, a lot of people still accept the rules that they have been put into. Like, if it's better for their job, it's a choice. We can have this choice. Maybe somewhere else you cannot take this responsibility for your own career.
And you said before when we talked that that it's actually normal for you, like if something doesn't work for a person in the project, they can leave and it will be fine with the industry. It's not like something that like you will not be.
Yeah, I've not known so many people. I mean, blacklisting for me is always like something that they try to. For me, it's an invention. I've never seen anyone not working again. It's like blackmailing without real possibility of doing that. I mean, if you're blackmailed, for me, there would be more reason to blackmail some harasser than the poor person who's actually like suffering from it. So let's just put things back where they should be. So I mean, if there are ways to solve those harassing problems, that's probably one of the solutions. The next solution is like to find a way to. How do you talk about people that are being so mean? Like it's a big problem, but it's not for this industry. It's in general.
All right.
Yeah, well, the situation in Latvia is quite different. I would like to mention the working conditions that we usually face, and we don't really have unions. The light department and the camera department kind of has a union, but it's also not like legally approved or anything. It's just like an agreement that they have all agreed upon, and it's being respected by the producers. And but the situation with the makeup department is quite different. There are pretty much no regulations about the rates, so everybody at some point kind of feels like they are disposable, because if your rate is too high, then they're just gonna find the next person that's gonna be able to do it for the smaller rate. And we're working on that. We are continuously discussing the possibility of coming to an agreement about having fixed rates, so that dumping wouldn't be such a problem. And also being paid for pre-calls and overtime is not like the most common practice. It's kind of becoming more common, but there are still some local productions that are still not respecting those kinds of things. So yeah, well, this is the Wild West of the.
But can they actually pay those hours? Because that's the main problem, is that sometimes it's just impossible to afford paying all the hours, and then. But it has to be said at the beginning of the project, not in the middle where you're already working.
Yeah, it should be considered while making the budget.
Exactly.
And the over hours, actually, from my production perspective, I might add, is that over hours are actually from like makeup department and all of those departments are actually not that high. It's not like you have to double the fees or something. It's like they're very reasonable, I would say. Yeah. So no, it shouldn't be a problem.
In Israel, it's actually quite the opposite. Like you make your living from all the hours.
Wow.
You get like the first hour, you start getting 150%, second hour 200%, third hour 300%. So yeah.
So the overtime, is it normal in Israel then?
Yeah.
Or it's still with all those like fees.
Yeah, because usually you kind of counterbalance it between like from the cost of the location, for the cost of the equipment, like getting people there. So you would be like, I would try to squeeze like 3 days or 2 days.
Yeah.
So like it's pretty normal, especially as the budget rise, but like it's really normal to work 17 hours, 18 hours.
Okay, in a movie, or not in a one-day commercial?
No, in a movie.
Oh. Okay, all right. So Zana, maybe you can continue with your story. Yeah.
Well, I've been working on all kinds of sets for the last 5 years, pretty much, and in the various positions of the makeup department, from being an assistant for the extras makeup, and also being a head of department and a makeup designer. And the makeup, this position is like, it's more creative than technical, but it's still also a technical position. And what I like to address is that like almost like half of the crew members of a movie set are coming from creative and artistic backgrounds, and these people are good at what they're doing because they are just different, and they can be creative and help with developing the characters and building and designing the sets, and providing powerful tools of storytelling, because they perceive the world kind of in a different way, and they're more sensitive and emotionally aware, and sometimes these people are not really that suitable for the conditions that they have to work in for extended periods of time, and such as being sleep deprived and short-staffed. The departments are short-staffed a lot of the time, and they are just overloaded with work, and sometimes they find it hard to endure all of that, and still they have to perform really mentally challenging tasks, and they have to be creative, and also they have to be like keep going through all these extended periods of them like experiencing a lot of mental strain, and these kind of gentle and introverted people are well, sometimes they face not only these extreme working conditions, but also on top of all of that, they kind of experience some of the issues like sexual harassment and bullying from their superiors, from their departments, and so far there, like in my 5 years of experience, I've only had one production where like all of the heads of departments would have to have a meeting, and we would be presented with the production's zero tolerance policy about sexual harassment, and no shouting policy, and no bullying. And maybe it was because it was a Finnish production, maybe it's common practice in Finland, or that's because most of the cast were minors, and what I'm thinking is that maybe it should be implemented in every production. These kinds of conversations should be a crucial part of production, so that people that are more susceptible to kind of being unstable and not handling stress too well, they would feel more secure about having the ability of being vocal about their issues that they are facing, and perhaps the people that are in the positions of power that sometimes are the cruel ones and that cannot handle the stress well, but it they are the ones that are suppressing their kind of crew members. Maybe they would be more aware of the fact that they cannot afford to be insincere, and that they are being kind of watched as well. And I think that's also something I would like to mention. So I think this practice would be really beneficial to every movie set situation. Yeah, I don't know. I think I missed something. It's really
fine. We will have the discussion later on, so you can still. Guys, do you have anything else?
I love what you said about this kind of conversation. We said it couple productions ago to kind of think about how pragmatically, you can add really pragmatic stuff that kind of creates some situation. So we started the no running rule.
Mm-hmm.
You're not allowed to run on set. Because when you're not running, you're actually much more chill. Nothing good happens when you run on set.
That's true. It's actually, we have the same rule, but it's an important one.
No running. I will write that. Okay, so let's move on then to Ondřej.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, I already don't work as a program director of One World Festival, but I used to. So, but about the mental health conditions and the institutions as a festivals and other things, there will be debate for tomorrow. So for today, I am here as a filmmaker, as I work as a scriptwriter and a director on the field of virtual reality films. So my set is not the typical film set. My film set is my bed where I write my scripts, and then the animation studios where I work. But what I like to talk here about is that my recent project, which I work on, is virtual reality animated thing called Darkening, and it's about dealing with depression, and it's my own personal story. So it's about how it's kind of a next level when the filmmaker is shooting about him or her depression actually. So it's a kind of a tricky thing in some way. But maybe I will start from the beginning how I set on this road. I started to work as a journalist at the beginning, where I was in the television, where I was there was no policy about no running on set. We had to run everywhere, from the editing room to the, on the set as well. It was pretty crazy. I was quite young, but and it was enthusiastic, but I kind of decided that this is really too much for me, so I can't do it. So I was like then thinking about where to switch my career, and I thought about screenwriting. So I studied screenwriting, and I also started work for the film festival as a programmer and then the program director. And then during the work on the festival, I started to deep into the medium of virtual reality, and I really started like the medium. And when you are a programmer and you are watching all these great films, you know, so I was like, oh, I need to do something on my own as well, you know. And I decided that it would be good to make a story about dealing with depression, because it was a close topic to me, because I had some depressive disorders from when I was already as a child, but like diagnosed from when I was 20. And by that time there were no such a project on this field. Like this year, it's like a lot of project appeared, you know, so guess why. So I decided to make this project. At the beginning, I was like, okay, I will make the story of somebody else, and I will recreate it in virtual reality. The idea from the beginning was like that I want to step into the head of somebody, and you know, to visualize what's happening actually in the head of somebody who is suffering from depression. Then I found out that it would be very tricky to deep in someone else's depression, so I decided that I will step into my mind and, you know, start to work on this. And at the beginning it was like quite okay. I worked on the script with my close friends, and it was good, and we got some support and everything. I think the biggest challenge became with the actual production in the studio, in the graphic studio where we started to work, and where I needed to explain a bit more, you know, everything to the animators and to the graphic designers and programmers, you know, and to talk about this issue. So it was kind of reactivating some of the depressive thoughts, you know. So which, if I would knew before that it will be like that, I would probably not step into that project. But that's how it works. I think that you can't know what will happen, otherwise you would do anything if you knew. But then I kind of it got better, and I think that the overall production went pretty well. And now, like by the very end of the production, like the second part of the production, I started to really enjoy it. So my point in this, what like helped me on this way to, and in general, what's really great in this XR creative industry around virtual reality and gaming and things like this, is that you're working a lot in the team as a also creative team. You are not there as a director who is like just deciding about everything, and you have this big pressure on you, but it's like a really more collective work than on the classical set of the fiction film. So that's what I like, and what kind of helps me also to, in my creative process, you know, to feel good, because like I also was doing the classical direction on a set, and it's like super stressful. So my recipe for this is, you know, to at least, if it's possible, to find your body on your way. It could be your screenwriter, it could be second director, but I believe like that working in pairs and in tandems, it's really, really much better than to bear all the shits alone.
Yeah. Thank you. Any comments? No?
I mean, just like it, I think like it's kind of connected when you talk about like both. You know, like you think about, well, we are working in a creative field and we need to be sensitive as the pretense to even doing things, but a lot of it also comes from the fact that like we all in all of our fields need to drive from like something really personal connection, personal understanding. So there is like a continuing stepping into it. So yeah, I think it's kind of brave to do like a film about something that is like so sensitive and close to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I remember, I once read a quote from Fellini when some journalist asked him that he said, it looks like that in your movies very much autobiographical moments, and Fellini answered that real art always is autobiographical.
Yeah.
And in a sense, I believe that in a lot of cases when it's a really creative process, so we are already stepped in our territory of mental instability. In general, so if we are showing to our spectators just mental health, it can be very boring. And I believe in that sense, really, that all this atmosphere around is very important, I believe, because and as you mentioned too, that these creative personalities, when they step in all this atmosphere which is created by the crew and the general stuff, and I believe that it's really vulnerable. So because you are open, and then there is someone who is angry, shouting, bullying, and then of course it hurts, I believe, very much.
You know what's interesting, that I think that people really often don't think about it like that the topic could be very, like, I mean, your crew, that it could be that sensitive for you. For me, as I was working on my own project, and everybody knew that we are, doing a thing about my depression, they were really aware of what they are, doing, and very, very sensitive, which I'm really glad for that, and it was amazing, that my team was very, very sensitive. But it was only because they knew that it is something really, really personal. If you have some other film which is like very, deep for you, I think that it's important to tell the crew why it's so sensitive for you, so they feel your vulnerability, you know what I mean. Because I believe if they are at least a bit sensitive, so then they will reflect it in their approach. So
Yuval, you're the last person to talk.
Yes. I will try to keep it brief so we can all just have a conversation. I think it started by saying that I work both in the US and in Israel, and many times I've been told that I'm too nice, that I'm unexpectedly nice. And kind of, I don't know, it's this something I carried with me and kind of trying to figure out what it means. And I think I've inherited a lot of crew from hotel directors both in Israel and in the US. And there is a lot of conversation in the set, telling all those war stories about how everybody got fired and rehired, the span of the shoot. Or how we had to, the director changed everything and we had to shoot in the middle of the desert in the cold. And it was always some sort of glittering in the eyes. Where I heard about it, it sounded to me terrible. That sounds like terrible experiences. And I think something was really common is I would like, that's like, so you would probably never work with them again. I was like, of course you will, they're like geniuses. And me as a director, knowing like how stressful things go and being on set, I often I try to listen, try to give stage and voice to people's opinion about my set, and this too nice kind of phrase was in the fact that like maybe I need to be more capricious, I need to put my will out there, and if I don't take people to do stuff out of the ordinary, then maybe it's just too ordinary of a film. And it's something I just like, I'm always kind of trying to figure out in the how is it possible that like I work in a field where people have this like serious Stockholm syndrome towards like the way they're being treated. But I think like kind of where I ended up with it is like I was kind of wondering when we talked about why this is the first thing that came to my mind, like this is too nice of her, because I don't think I'm too nice of a person really. But I think like I was thinking about it because while I am being like I like to think being like nice and considerate to people who work with me on the set, my films themselves are films that put the people who work on them in the mental fragility. So like we shot, the last film was shot in a war zone. I shot in hostile environments. All of my projects were in some sort of hostile environments. There would be like interaction with the army, interaction with close-knit communities who don't want you to be there. And I think like it kind of, you know, like there were a couple incidents on my set, PTSD triggered events, and in some ways it kind of at odds with my philosophy, which is that set should be a pleasant place. And kind of like that was the last note when we talked that I was left with. Is kind of like there is a lot of films that I really like, I really appreciated, that I know that there was no way to create them in a safe environment. You can make it safer, but if you go now and shoot a documentary in Ukraine, it wouldn't be a safe environment for the film crew mentally. And it kind of like left me like seeing my DP, like experiencing PTSD on set, like it kind of left me in this, like thinking like maybe this film shouldn't have been made, and maybe there are films that shouldn't be made. And I'm kind of like in between thinking again, like a lot of my inspirations are films that were made in tough places.
Well, yeah, as a person that's often very close to a director and like we have to work closely together, it's really important that the director is really approachable and that he's like, they are really human, and it's possible to have discussions like on set about things, and it has happened that it's not the case, and it's really hard to communicate with the director, but like I think it's really crucial that they are just calm and just a nice person. And also about the things you were saying about extreme conditions of shooting, it's really important to just that everybody is on the same page about it, and everybody that are getting involved know that where they're getting involved, and that it's not just kind of happening as you go, as the shoot goes. And yeah, so communication is key for like really complicated shooting situations.
Yeah, and I think it was important for us that we, like, it's not that the whole thing was that way, the film that I have here in the festival, but so it was important for us to be like, to tell our crews, look, like if there is this one day that specifically for you is too hard, we'll just find a replacement for one day. It doesn't mean you can't work on this film. But I think what I realized through the film is that people can accept, be like, you know, like it's gonna be fine, like how bad it can be, and that's the thing. Like what you can't imagine before you start working on film on your depression that it's gonna be triggering, and I think, but I totally think that the base level is still that you need to be like a human being and kind of be communicative.
All right, should we do like a 3-minute break everybody can fill up their waters, and then we come back with the discussion part, and please prepare your questions. So 3 minutes. So we reconvene in 38, according to mine. No, 39. Yes, 38, so dumb. All right, so maybe somebody has any questions starting the discussion part of it, like what do you think, or maybe some like ideas or anything. Latvians are very like...
I can do one actually.
Yes,
I
please.
thought I did say some like notes taking. No, but I can. I mean, I have like actually, you know, it's like something really specific that I thought about. That is actually, it's one person perspective, so I can speak for the entire U.S. and Israel. But I noticed that in Israel and in the States, if there is a union, the union actually puts more pressure on the unionized people to some extent than the thing itself, because once the bottom line of how you should work is set really, really high, as much as hours you should work, and there are a lot of like people can be lose their individuality. And I know people, for instance, I have like the production designer, and she was really happy to get into the production design union in the States, and the first job, she's, you know, like she's extremely well paid, and she has job security there. But also they told her like really nicely that she should never make mistakes, that she should enjoy it, but also don't make mistakes. And I know people who decided to not take union jobs for that reason, because in the union situation it's in some way there is a ability to do to blacklist. So I mean, like, it's a very specific example where just like I thought about it.
But it's in the U.S.
That's
right?
in the U.S. It's just union jobs, as like in the States there is this thing, there is like when you do a production you need to basically decide if it's going to be union job or not a union job, and if somebody on the set for the entire crew or cast is union, then everybody else should be union as well. And with great strength comes.
But can you decide whether, like, or if you're in union you only do union jobs?
You're legally supposed to do union jobs.
Okay.
That means what's the consequence? Like, if the whole crew is union, what's the consequence on the movie, on the budget?
So it's much higher budget, and you do need to, like, the pay structure is like you get much more well paid. But then also, like, you can't not say like, yeah, I'm not going to work extra hours, because there is really specific laws. You work extra hours, you get paid for them. It is what it is, kind of. And it's, you know, like you get into this system which is designed to keep you wealthy, job secured, but not healthy.
But so this system our system was a bit like that until the 2000. And in the 2000, the Ministry of Culture decided to extend the signed agreement that just concerned unions at the beginning, but to the general industry. So I was talking in the beginning about collective agreements. Each field, like even if it's like building houses, has a collective agreement, and automatically you cannot not use this. It's like over the law. The collective agreement is mandatory in France, so it means that if unions already sign something with employers, so with producers, automatically the agreement will apply to the workers of the industry, whether or not you're unionized. I'm not unionized, I'm thinking about it, but I didn't feel the need to be into union, because actually it's already so well. Like, I mean, people have been fighting for rights for so long, so I didn't feel like I even needed to ask for that. Yeah.
But I have a question in regards to working conditions in general, because we touched upon a little bit of it, but what do you think? Like, should it be like completely broken down to like we work 10 hours per day, not more, or we get like ridiculous over, like, can it be even a discussion? Like, would you think that mental health, like, do you want to get shitloads of money so that, I'm sorry for it, a lot of money so that you can be like somehow valued in that sense, or do you think that there should be like a maximum amount of working hours like worked on per day or per week? Because I think like work-life balance is one of the most important stuff, but what do you think, like, because it doesn't seem that if you put like, if over hours are super expensive, it makes a difference for some productions. So like, what is it like in regards to working hours?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Anyway, like there is like a healthy limit. You cannot just like work for 2 months, 18 hours a day. It's impossible physically. So already, what's the limit you put your workers in? For us, working like 6 days a week already, there is a limit of 4 weeks that you would work 6 days a week. I think that's legal limit. Then the amount of hours that's legally admitted for a day is 13 hours of shoot, which doesn't include like preparation and meal time, but like that's for cinema. Cinema has really strict rules that doesn't apply to advertisements. You can do a one shoot day of like 18 hours also, but it's exceptional. If you work the next day, like 13 hours, I think is the limit. But it's shooting hours, so it means probably a day of already 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 days a week.
But nobody does that, honestly. Like, it's too risky. Your people would go back home wasted, and they will have an accident on the highway, and like, who wants that?
Yeah, because for example, in Finland, I read a lot about the working conditions in Finland, and they have it's basically 10 hours per day. Well, they have it per week. They switch it to like 40 hours per week. So one day it could be like 13 hours, but the next day has to be like 6 or something like that. So it's like a little bit. Of course, they want to do it depending on the location. If there's a location limitation, so let's do like this one long day, but the next day should be short or something like that.
Yeah.
And also, they don't work Sundays because Sundays is like double salary.
Pay,
Yeah, and I think it's like it gives a lot to being able to be on a Sunday with your family rather than working every Saturday, Sunday because the location limitations are so that you can only shoot on Saturdays, Sundays. How is it in the US? Do you have like any rules like that?
In Israel, we have for the weekends. But I mean, like when you said it, I realized how I am also Stockholm syndrome, because I was just like, how do you make movies with 40 hours a week? when the movie is being made? So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we have to alternate in Latvia. You have to alternate between 5-2-6-1. It's the minimum. So it's like you cannot have 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, like 6 working days, 1 day off. You have to have like 5-2-6-1, and usually that's what people do. But sometimes due to location limitations, you would have like 3 days, 1 day off, 5 days, 2 days off. So it would be like this. So sometimes you would never have Saturdays, Sundays off. You would have like Mondays, Tuesdays off, which is like ridiculous because you don't spend any time with your families. And it's usually 12 hours rental to rental. So now we're kind of trying to move in the direction where it's like 11 hours on the set, because like the travel time, half an hour in like is counted in the shift hours. Of course, it's usually like you would get like 1 overhour every day, approximately, something like that. That's from my line production, not the moderator perspective. Yeah, so that's kind of the working conditions, but it's still like 6-1, 5-2 is like, I think it's a little bit too much, because sometimes it's like 72 hours per week. Like usually the normal regulations for working conditions is 40 hours, right, for a regular person.
Yeah.
So 72 hours is like, when do you even do anything except work?
Yeah, and it's risky also. It's not just insane, it's also risky.
Yeah, but do you think it could, like the working condition regulation could benefit a little bit more, like people would benefit more if this, like exhaustion is mental health, maybe? Yeah, probably.
But it's interesting that you say that, for example, in Czech Republic, like the unions, I think they don't work, like, I would say at all on the field, because they are just giving some recommendations what should be done. But as you said, that in France you have 99% people like who are really employers. Mm-hmm. So in Czech Republic it's the total opposite. Like you have 99 who are freelancers and they are you know, set for the particular project, you know, and it depends everything on the contract you have. And it's tricky, you know, so a lot of my friends who are DOPs or are working on the set, so they say that the conditions are really crazy, but it's like take it or leave it. So I feel that definitely it depends on the country, but at least in Czech Republic I feel that there is a lot of space to improve it. But that's also like the thing, like who should be in the unions. Like most of the people who would be there, they want to work mostly, like not manage all the, you know, administration things around the unions and these things. So it's crazy. And when you say that if somebody is like works too much and then I don't know crash into the tree when this is going from the set, I would not say that nobody cares, but it's like, you know, he's not the employer. So it's like I feel that even like the productions, they are protected against that, which I feel that is very different in France, which is great. So
yeah, it's the same with accidents on set, right, and everything. Like on set, off set, maybe after hours accidents where the production is not liable then because it's like it happened somewhere outside or after. It doesn't mean that like the person was exhausted maybe from working all of those long hours. Yeah.
But so how far as I understand, but maybe I'm wrong. So because if you work permanently, 72 hours per week, you are going insane in a half of year, I believe. But I believe that in cinema, is it so that this structure of life is more hectic, so that there is some period when you are working a lot, and then there is a big gap in which you are out of the job, or I'm wrong?
It's actually a discussion of whether you are creative, like or an HOD, like head of department in the movie, or are you a technical crew? Because heads of department, they go through the area of prep where they would have like 1 or 2 months preparing, and they would have normal working hours, usually like office hours. And then closer to the production, they would go into these 12-hour shifts and then start working. But I'm always trying to remind myself about all the technical crew that I don't think, like, they're not here because they're usually working. But by technical crew, I mean all the electricians and camera assistants and everybody who jump from project to project working only shift hours. So they would be the ones who would have maybe like a week in between if they're lucky, because it's like the timeline, or they would move from commercial to commercial. And can you imagine people who work only on commercials, and if you say that 18 hours is normal, then you would be like spiraling through 18 hours, day off, 18 hours, day off. It's ridiculous, because like for us, it's actually for production, it's easy. I work 3 months in an office, and then for 2 months I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna do it now. But for those guys, it's their regular job, so they actually move closer to the rental houses where they have the equipment. They live next to the rental houses just so that they can get this half an hour of extra sleep before they can come to work again. So I think it's like it's a discussion about two different like types of people. Yeah,
well, sometimes after I have done a production as the makeup designer, I feel like I need a long break after that to just recuperate. And but since we don't have the situation, the union situation like you do, we cannot really afford not to work, because if we don't work, we cannot pay our bills. We just have to keep paying our rent. But so we have to kind of get back on track really fast after these hectic and long productions, and that's also quite a mental strain thing for us. Since there are no possibility of just not working like at all. That's just not a thing.
Well, it would be if there would be some salary negotiations that would be done, probably, because then you earn enough money on a production in order to have yourself paid vacation, which is the like the previous project kind of paid for it. in a sense, because that should be like that. That's how it's like in the
Yeah, but stuff got worse after COVID. Like people got, all of a sudden were like, wow, nothing is certain. All the productions, like you lost all your work in a day. I mean, actually, like the system of like welfare worked relatively to the context of US worked relatively well, but people were like traumatized. People are like, even people I know worked really well without like jumping from work. So Alexandre just like, I'm not saying no to anything. And they'll be like, at some point there will stop being jobs and I would take like a longer vacation. But people would have you can theoretically in some fields do double shifts. Yeah. So I know people like post-COVID got really like overwhelmed.
But this is actually a very good point, because I realized that after COVID hit, since I started work, I've never stopped actually. I'm just like, I doubled up on projects at some point, because it's like, oh, like there's another one, maybe we will not have another one. And it's another thing about living in a small country, right? Because you never know, like you have a project that overlaps with the previous one, but then you don't know if you say no to this one, will there be another one? So you're just like piling it up on each other just to be sure, just to save some money, right? Have you had the chance to save some money? That's a question, like in order for you, like I'm not talking to you, obviously, you have your own employment benefits, but you guys, like, do you feel that you can, like, do you feel secure in the sense of, will you be able to stop at some point?
No.
Good, well, that's...
I think it's also like a lot about your communication with the main producer, like who is giving a contract with you, and about your salary. So yeah, and of course you need to. So for me, it's like that I have some money, for some period of time when the project is on. And then who knows? Not. So.
I mean, I think as head of a department, it's you kind of feel like. I mean, also I feel it as an editor, but I feel as a director, like it's not about the money. Like you should just do it, and it's not a great mentality to save money. Like
for the rainy day.
No. And I think it is a thing, like it's almost like, and it goes back to that, like it's almost like people's working conditions are being put against your creation in some ways, like it sounds amazing to work less hours, but then so the production will have more money, right? We'll have more money to extend it, because we need these 12 hours, so if you cut it to 10, it means, right, we'll get like 50 more the amount of budget. So I think like when you start to have this kind of mentality about your own creation, you kind of, it's the first thing that goes out today is the mental health, or health in general.
Okay.
But regarding...
So you will, so finishing up, you would say that if you would have more money in order to work shorter hours, you would put that money into something else rather than short working hours.
I'm just saying, like, it would be either that or I don't think I ever worked as director on a production that I didn't end up feeling that I need to contribute some of my own money to something, whatever it is. It can be just even feed the people who work.
But I just wanted to say one thing to the working hours. I recently spoke to the director of the Society, which is an organization part of a British Film Institute, and they recently started to have a 4 days working policy. So they don't work on Friday. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, and how does it work actually? And the director was like, oh, it's challenging, So, and then, because it was Friday, we had some meeting or something, like non-working meeting, and so like, okay, I need to leave for some more meeting. I was like, isn't it Friday? So you should not work? It doesn't work like that much more. So I think that that's like the official policy is one thing, which is nice, and then the reality is also the second thing. And I believe that it's a nice approach, for example, that, okay, we will reduce the number of working hours. That's a really nice step, but on the other hand, you also need to then reduce the number of work in some way, because it's like, I don't believe, like of course, maybe you can say more on that. Like, it's also the thing about 7 hours working day. A lot of people say that, okay, when you work less, you are more concentrated on the work, you can more effectively. I think it's true for one point, but still, you know, I don't feel that it's doable without reducing the work. You know, you need to get off of something, and if you're working on film, you want it to be the best, you know. So you need to like, and then like this is like the balancing of it is very tricky. So yeah. But maybe it would be a question for you. How do you feel that the less working hours policy works for mental health?
Yeah, so I believe that the point is, I believe the point is a balance, and so like you, Zana, said, so. I know that there is one concept which I believe is it's really very crucial, so that it's a need for meaningful breaks. Because if you are working a lot and quite permanently, so you can do quite a mechanical job for a long time, but you are losing your creativity, and from that point there is some big corporations which have a policy: if some of workers didn't take their vacations, they reduce their salary because their effectivity is dropping down. and I think that this point, what you meant, Zana, that really after this, okay, you can do quite an intensive job for some period of time. But then there is a need for a break, and reasonable break to recover emotionally and for creative work. And as you mentioned, so now in this post-COVID time, when one project overlaps in the other, and so you are going in a permanent hectic way. So I believe it's really you lose your main tool, you lose your creativity, and finally you are exhausted. And I believe that exhaustion and creativity is really opposites. When you are exhausted, you cannot be creative.
Yeah, that's true. But it's not only about what you said, that like your point is it's better than all the technical other positions that you work. How you said it, 3 months in office and then 2 months on a set, something like that, and you can manage it somehow. I don't believe that this is also a good approach, because I think that it's like, okay, for me, I work for the festival. Tomorrow maybe we will get to know more about how the working for the festival is also exhausting. For me, it was a half year of really intensive like work, even it's in office, never mind, okay, the set is also, it's exhausting in other way. But then after the festival ended, I was like not usable for a month, you know, or something, you know. And it was like we had some time that we could recover. But then I realized, okay, do I really want to work like that? Like that I'm, you know, like focusing on something. It's super mentally like difficult, and then I need to like recover for such a long time. I believe it's not a good way, you know, because yeah, that was one of the reasons actually. So that I want to have, as you said, reasonable breaks. It can be like on the minor scale and on the major scale as well, you know. So, but it's so difficult in film, of course, because you need to, you know, start work and, you know, push it somehow. So then there is a question how to do it. You can do it for some time like this. I was working for the festival for 7 years, you know, and after that I was like, okay, I need to quit because I'm not able any longer. And for yeah, for working on set, I believe that it must be very, very similar. So how to create a system when you are able to do it for a really longer time and to keep sane? I believe that in France they have their system and it's really good. So, but how to persuade people here to work?
But I think it's a bigger card. Like even the idea of like you grit it out. I don't think like it's right. It's a virtue where when you say it so plainly, it sounds like it makes no sense. And I think like like that what I said about like directors being like mental cases. That's because like it's it's a cultural perception that like artists should be able to be crazy or treat people in a crazy way. And I think also like the productiveness is like this, like you said, I wanted to make the best film it can be, and it means I need to work the most time it can be. Like there is this linear equation that 1 more hour means 1 more point to your film.
But for example, would you always talk to your crew when you're in this situation, when you see that the scene is not there or it's been a difficult day and it's raining and the whole crew is soaked and you still need 2 more hours? As a director, maybe a lot of productions don't talk to the crew, but like at this precise moment there needs to be like a talk with everyone to be sure that people will accept working like those 2 extra hours. And it's just like as we said before, like communication in difficult situations, specifically in difficult situations, it's mandatory. It's like you cannot pass that.
Yeah, it's like in Sweden, you have to ask everybody on set, are they okay with overtime? And if everybody says they're okay, then you proceed. If somebody says no, you have to cut for the day.
Sounds like the Squid Games.
No, but I think I think that was like to my mind maybe it's a little bit going overboard. But communication, as you said, I think it's super important because it means like it gives the feeling of everybody that they've been heard. And talking about communication in the in the UK. And now on the American productions in the UK as well, now they have a psychologist on set. So what is your do you think that this could we talked about this intimacy coordinator as well, like for difficult scenes, because sometimes when you do scenes that are like, I don't know, like rape or sex scenes or anything that could make the crew extremely uncomfortable. So what do you think would having you have an on-call psychologist, as I understand, or like a person where you can talk to in case there's some harassment and bullying, but would we benefit? Do you think that they could film sets would benefit from having a psychologist either on call or on set?
I think on call would be a perfect situation because also everybody would be mindful about how they are behaving, knowing that there is this person and that it's possible to get consultation if needed. So I think it would kind of increase the baseline of this mental climate being a bit better if everybody were aware that there is a possibility like that and they can use it if needed.
I think that it would be better to on call. It can work, but I believe that it's important if you have some psychologist who is working with any team, so he knows the team in some way.
Yeah.
So I believe that call a random guy, the director is so bad to me, I'm collapsing. No, I think that it doesn't work. So I think that it must be somehow systematic, but I can't imagine that it would be affordable to the productions, and psychologists have their own work a lot, so even to find them, I think, would be really difficult.
Can I ask something about it or comment? I don't know if there's...
No, sure.
But I just really wanted to ask you, because that's something what I'm asking myself, isn't there also a connection between mental health and also a lack of leadership skills? Because I think for me, from my perspective as a director, I also think that this is something which concerns leadership in general, not a psychologist or an intimacy coordinator, but really in general, this broad topic of leadership. And there we touch on this corporate word leadership. And I think it's also, we are in the creative industries. We don't want these standards into our industry, but I really wonder, that is something that I feel lacks, and we need more education to be good leaders, not only directors, producers, but also the department heads. So really to tackle it in a broader sense on set, because for me that's like really a crucial point.
But I think that you have a good point, but I think it's not only about the directors. I think about about some positions in top management, about anybody who is directing people. So I think that it used to be like, okay, if you are a good manager, you need to make order. Like that was like, it used to be the main quality. I believe that now the society is moving a bit from that, because people believe that this is not how we want to work under such a management. So I believe that the managers and directors themselves really need to being a bit psychologist to the to the crew, you know, as well.
But so I agree about what you said about this teamwork. Teamwork, coordination, and improving the teamwork, because I believe that it's quite specific for this. Okay, of course, the teamwork is quite widespread in many areas, but I believe in movie making, the teamwork is crucial, so that these rather different people with rather different businesses stick together for the same goal. And so I believe that really, so what can be affordable? I believe that some psychologist, which is a part of the crew, okay, I think it's a bit utopic, but some group work with psychologists, at least some part, some okay, some maybe not every week, because groups also not working every week. It's rather twice a week or once a month. So that some group work, when there is a possibility to express all the emotions, say, and to keep some team spirit up, I believe it's affordable, and it can be even more important than maybe this individual work with some. Because of course, if there's special occasion, of course, maybe harassment or something like that, yes, then this individual work will be important, but I believe that this work with team is more.
You think, I guess that it must be facilitated by somebody else than by the director or somebody from the team, because it could be tricky, or...
Yeah, so of course, the psychologist is always the people from side.
Yeah.
If it takes some sides, so that it doesn't. It just need to be absolutely independent person.
I'd like to add maybe, I work with conflict resolution and team functionality, and I had the chance to support actually women in the filmmaking industry for over 2 years, and so learning a lot that's being functional and dysfunctional in this industry. And I would say really two things, I guess, about the leadership that you said. What I'm really observing, that the management skills and the leadership skills are really poor in industry. And the other thing is that it is an illusion that you can really shift from a leader who is very demanding and who acts from a power position to a leader who is very collaborative, because the crew around is enabling this power relationship. And for that to be able to change actually needs to take a long time. And there is a lot of research and speculation about that you actually cannot shift from this leadership style of very centric ego, demand energy, to someone who is really supporting and leading the team. That is probably a goal of lifetime. And if you have people around who is submissive and support that, and who don't know how to negotiate, and that was something you said, that actually the fact that there is really poor assertiveness presence among the people who are in the teams and who are not really negotiating and standing up for their needs, means that the idea that someone from the team will support the team is really not going to work, because they will not be balancing the power relation. And therefore what Māris said, that someone from the outside, and I would say the problem would be, that would be reacting on the problems. If the industry who is supporting people who are actually in the education sector, who are coming into the field, or these agencies or the unions, you really need to boost up the skills and empowerment so people don't fall in those victim roles. Because when it's already just reacting the emotions on the set, it's too late.
I just maybe expressed not well, because I thought that like people who are in the position like of power as the leading persons are going to be like, they are not going to be that popular in the industry, because the people who are taking another approach will be more taken because people want to work with them. I did not mean that it's easy to switch like from being a boss, you know, to be somebody who will approach them nicely.
Like both what you said really resonate, and Ilke as well, is that, you know, when you asked about if you think psychology like on circle app, I think like it's a very small part of it. And there is a conversation I have a lot with my brother who is here, works in tech, is that in some ways I feel like film is where tech work was like 20 years ago. When it was just like, you know, we're just gonna grind those people out and that's what you need to do. It's a really big business with a lot of money involved. And some of not the tech is perfect or amazing, but just like in the context of mental health, all of a sudden like the entire perception, there was a cultural like shift like on the biggest scale of just like, you know, it's not sustainable, it's not profitable, it doesn't work on any of the levels. And I think like every time I talk with somebody in tech, I'm like, yes, like I really hope that in the next couple of years or whatever, it's gonna look like one of those money makers.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we had a question or a comment there? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm the technical guy for the festival, and I also work in IT on the side. So actually, two things come to mind. The first one is that I think for a lot of people, the mental model of what like mental health is really crap. Because it's, you know, there is this sort of idea that you can call a technician, you know, someone with a wrench who can fix up your, I don't know, your exhaustion and burnout, and it's not really the case. And I think a lot of the times it's about, like, for example, in IT, like I work in a big enterprise company, and they have this thing where to solve problems with mental health, what they do is tell you to create a webinar where they tell you to sit in front of the computer less, or they create a subscription for an application that tells you that you should definitely do more mindfulness and not use applications at all. And it's it's like this stupid catch-22, and I sort of have a feeling that there needs to be this sort of etch and sketch. You know, you need to shake it up and like clear up the picture. Because it's really, well, toxic, because in the middle of the conversation you also talked about how you need to decrease the amount of work or the hours, but you still need to do the amount of work that you do. You need to create the films and blah, blah, blah. And worse so, when it comes to stuff which is like cultural or film or like music or IT, what I do, a lot of the time there's a story that it's a passion kind of thing. So this sort of horrible condition where you try to, you know, put yourself into a furnace and just turn into a piece of coal, it's encouraged, and not only encouraged, it is expected. And I don't have a solution to it, but one thing that what I started with and what I want to finish with is that I think the mental model and understanding of what mental health is and what deteriorates it, that needs to be sort of changed. And it can't be taken in the sense that it's something fixable, but rather something that burnout is just to be prevented, maybe something like that. You know, you don't use medicine all the time, you do preventive stuff for health.
Thank you. But I have a question for Yuval then, because I think you, in the previous discussion, you opposed a little bit to it because your idea was that maybe to do art one should suffer.
No, I mean, I think.
So how is it like? How?
No,
can you balance?
I actually think it's one of the things that actually kept me alarmed is that like I would talk to people and they would be like, yeah, I mean, like if you want to be like a big director, I mean, you know what big director asks their crew to do, like crazy stuff. So I think like in general, I think it's not the right mechanism. But I think what you said now is I think it's still something that is valued, you know, like the ability to suffer. And I think I think that the changes to it would be to kind of think about it in different terms of what we think we value in general. Like vacation. Let's talk more about like vacation on set. What you do like over the weekend. Like instead of talking about like the quality of the film, and the idea that there is something that is beyond that day. I think like it's even taken it before. Like it's not only we're gonna take a month break. It's the essence is the month break. Like the month break is not a break between those two things. It has an existence. It's a being as itself. And I think it's something that it's easy to forget when it's like your life dream and you spend all your time and money and you know like. Took me this. I screened a short film that took me 6 years to make. So like it's hard to be like, you know, like be like, yeah, but actually what's important is my downtime. But I think like we can start talking about it in those terms.
Yeah. But who should be the one who is the team leader then? I want to come back a little bit to the discussion about like who should be the leaders. Is it the director? Is it the HODs? Is it the production? Who is the one who should be facilitating this collaborative, cooperative kind of working environment?
If you're looking to me,
yes,
I will say everyone. It's a shared leadership. I think it's really a time for for us to grow up, everyone, and the society is really shifting from this, you know, being told what to do in more they're taking the responsibility, and because and that's not just this industry. And I think this industry is a bit kind of stuck because it has this kind of stuck in a sense of romanticized suffering more than others. Like we romanticize war. I hope that we're not going to do this after Ukraine, but we're also romanticizing the suffering and we're romanticizing the extremes, the really highs and the really lows, and just the general neurosis, which the normal people or that are not. Maybe you don't notice them so much, who just, you know, have regular balance of work, who take responsibility, and so they don't have the drama so much. That we don't notice, and I think it's really the responsibility on all levels, like in society, top leadership, mid departments, and the people who are in a set, because if you're expecting that someone's going to take care of you, well, you're going to find yourself eventually in trouble. Talking from personal experience here, so it's... Yeah, everyone's growing up.
And it's also interesting that I feel that a lot of people still are not there, like in terms of like collective, as you say, that the collective collaborating and leadership in this. At least from my experience, I still felt like, okay, so I'm the director, so I should be really in charge of it. And I was trying, you know, okay, no, I don't want this to be just my decision. Let's have a talk about this, and I believe that sometimes people don't want to take it, and it's then it's kind of tricky what to do.
I would add just one more thing, and then I shut up. I think it's I'm just really passionate about it because I see so many damaged lives around that, and there are two elements. Empathize, if you have the awareness of this as a problem, and if you can notice that in your team and the people who are not able to take that responsibility, you first thing you want to empathize with them, and then you start educating them kindly, because you will always pay a price for someone who is giving up their power and not trying to live a sustainable life. So there's always a price. If you really don't give a shit about the people who are in your team, I mean, then obviously, I mean, it's really, hopefully you'll get so much feedback that eventually you'll be out of work. But otherwise, it's really whoever can give a helping hand and to empower the other, then that should take a lead. Yeah. Because obviously people will not take responsibility if they don't know how to. And you cannot just tell today, okay, from tomorrow, let's be responsible.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Just to know about it, I think like when you say culture, I mean like we are also like in the business of making culture, like making content, and I think some of it, that was where I ended what I said was that, like, you know, I think there are some films that can't be made safely. They can be made safely in a safer way, but I mean like you can I don't think there is a way to create a mental safe environment if there is a rape scene in your film. I don't think there is a safer way to make it, and I think it's also just like a question for us, because we create this content. You know, like if we have a protagonist that is like really ambitious and like the way that his dramatic arc is going around his ambitiousness, then it's kind of hard to do at the same time to be really chill on set and be like let's remember perspective. And I think, you know, like sometimes when I think about it, I'm like, I want people to be healthy, so maybe I should make films about healthier people and make and I think it is a thing, because those separation, I mean, you know.
So I believe you are right, and I believe that's why, because especially in some content, so you cannot be in a safe environment in the sense of movie and work what we are doing, and from that point it's very important, in that case especially important, to take care about other side of the this thing, because you already know that what is going on is quite, in a sense, maybe we can say traumatizing, and so take care about consequences, and so in other sense to try to keep this atmosphere more safe, to compensate this unsafe part of the content. So I believe because if we are just going to this unsafe territory for 100%, then it's really it's a big price for people who are in. And of course, it's one thing if the one is aware about the price, but in very much cases the people are not aware. They are just doing their job, and afterwards they are getting in trouble. But so I believe that this part of responsibility, it's keep in mind this other, the dark side of the moon, I can say.
Oh, but maybe there is also, you just don't need to make those things. You know, maybe you just there is no, like you said, like we need to do less. You know, we can create simple stories, simple films, like less. No, like it can be like a decision. Like I am a huge admirer of Ulrich Seidel's cinema. And Ulrich Seidel's cinema is terrible. I know he treats terrible his filmmakers, but the films really influenced me a lot, dramatically, in a positive way, I want to say. But you know, like maybe it doesn't worth it, and it's, I think, something when you work for so many years with something that is so short, and 2 hours is still really short, you can be like, maybe it's worth it. And I don't mean cinema doesn't worth it, but maybe the biggest sacrifice for us is not to work less, or that we should say, like, yeah, if we might need to create different work.
For me, it's not really about reducing or whatever. Like, each film has its own way of producing it, and I would say you have to find the solutions as the people who are thinking ahead of what are the concrete solutions to produce this movie that we don't have the budget. Usually you don't have the budget to make a movie, but you still do it. So I don't think you have to go through killing and doing like those huge days to do it. You just have to think through. Maybe let's just reduce the team. Like, why do you need like so many? Like, why do you need 50 people on set? Let's just make it like a small team. Try to build it differently. Maybe you don't have to have those fancy locations. I mean, sometimes it's just about reducing.
When you say it, I got like
I mean, if you think about it, maybe it's for the next movie that you will have this dream budget, but this one has to be focused on the essential things, and the essential things is not like giving the team like huge amount of hours to make your movie dream come true. I mean, that's not how it works. If you were working on a documentary, you work mainly alone and with your DOP and sound engineer, you can do what you want. But as long as you start a fiction process, you have to be aware that it's not easy. It's like it can take 10 years to produce a film, and there is a reason for that, that it's a complicated thing to achieve. Everything has to be there. Maybe there are so many projects that never happen. It's sad, but that's life. That's how it goes.
Sorry, I wanted to go back to the leadership thing. So many people that has become heads of departments, like the makeup designer or the costume designer, they sometimes come from a different generation where things were done differently, and they take great pride of the old ways and how harsh the working conditions has been, and they're just really kind of proud about what they have endured, and it's sometimes it's equal for them how good you are at what you're doing with how much you can endure, which is a problem, I think. And these people are still around, and they are really highly demanded because of their experience. And like you said, it's not the case that if they are really bad leaders, they're gonna be removed from the scene and the industry, because they are still the professionals that everybody wants to work with, but still they are a nightmare to work with. And I was wondering, like, what can possibly be done about these leaders that are still around and that are clearly, their departments are quite dysfunctional because the environment is just really unstable, and they cannot communicate. They have anger management issues, and but they will still be around us. And is it a possibility to advise them to see a therapist? Or I know that's pretty much.
It's a good idea, but it never works.
I mean, what can possibly be done about it to make it a bit less painful?
Yeah, but so it is what Ilse said. When she said about that this the way of leadership and changing a way of leadership, it's a very, very serious task, and it's a really life goal, and it can be done at the moment. And from that sense, of course, so I believe so what from what you, Alexander, said, so I think when so much depends of personal and subjective things, and of course cinema is a subjective word as itself, so that this point that there is some outer structure which just say, yeah, so okay, this union which said, yeah, okay, but you have to keep in mind this and this. And then this outer structure is very important, because it just puts some frame and say, yeah, okay, so yeah, you personally think that it's that you have to suffer, you have to sacrifice, but you have to do do it till 1 o'clock. So, and then it's over. And I believe while this structure doesn't exist, I cannot say that there is really solution. I hope that this solution will come by time, so that when generation changes and also this point of view will change. And I believe that this point of view that you just how to take care of yourself and not to sacrifice full on for everything. Because when this idea of sacrificing, and I believe that as you said this, and I believe that I also adore a lot of films when there is this tragic and suffering moments, but I believe that if all the environment come sacrificing or suffering, then I believe it's wrong. When we work on movie and to put up some hard feelings, environment should be more safe.
Yeah.
And when you are trying to reach these hard feelings in hard environment, and when you can say, oh, it works because it's fit together, I believe it's wrong, because then it really, I believe that you have to put it all in your work, but environment should be more safe than when you are doing not so excessive work.
But I believe that it's also like a matter of particular character. I know a lot of camera persons who told me, oh, I work the best when I'm under pressure. I'm like, what? It's like, it's crazy. Are you really? And it's like, and this is like what's, you know, copying, you know, from person to person, that like we can make only the best results when we are under pressure, and that's terrible. So, but I don't know.
You can be under pressure for a kind of safe amount of hours and then rest, and then be under pressure.
Yeah.
That's not contradictory.
Depends, yeah.
Sorry, we have a question? Yes?
Yes, when I was listening to all of what you said, it sort of resonated with me because I come from positive psychology background, but I'm also an actress, a theatre actress and a short film actress. And basically what I was going to say is that I think my one idea why people, like directors, go through such sort of sacrifice sort of model is because they don't really have an experience that it can be also fun and so on. And what restorative, like restorative psychology, is when something is damaged and you want to restore it. Like it's used in prisons, it's used in schools, classrooms. And the idea is that if there's like this group psychologist for the group work or preparation, right, before the film even starts, if they have like a few sessions where you can just sort of experience that, because how to say, the leader of these groups, they act in a way where everybody is empowered, and they teach like short, simple tactics of how to do it. Because, for example, you know, like probably most of you know, like this ball exercise, who has the ball can talk, right? That's like a really simple thing. But they also say, for example, there's a question. She says, I don't really know the answer. Let's hear what everybody has to say. And it becomes, but it has to be playful. It has to be like safe and playful. And when you experience that, it's not like you're told you can't do your suffering way. Just this is really valuable. But somebody else has got a different approach, and all of them are like important because you're a team. You're going to work together. So it's not like putting one on the spot, you do the wrong thing, but like sort of looking at what are the pluses of what you can do, and what are like the things that maybe you could do better, maybe you'd like to change. And then maybe the person can like share that, like, okay, I suffer. Usually it's the case, I don't want to suffer, but if I don't suffer, command everybody, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to work. Yeah. And I just think it's this new experience of experiencing something different, because it probably comes from the childhood background and it's a lifelong goal, like you said, but just sort of a few practical exercises in this thing, like it doesn't even take a long time. For example, for me it was 3 days workshop, but it can be even 1 day workshop. It just depends on how this psychology, not like individual work, that was like, you know,
teamwork.
Teamwork, yes, group work, teamwork.
Yeah.
I shut up.
Oh, thank you. I very resonated with the prison comment. Comparing sex to prisons, I really love that. We actually have to be finishing up, so if anybody has any last remarks, because we are running out of time. Anybody? Nobody?
Just about this last thing you said, Zani, like how to find solutions to our problems. One thing that seems to be obvious is that the solutions will be collective. You cannot be on the side, on the corner, and suffer alone. You have to. We have to build something. Like we work in a collective field. Everything has to be done in teams. Like the solutions will come from discussions with your teammates, obviously. So if you feel alone, or in this situation, maybe we should try to talk more about the subjects. That's the first thing, and then maybe we will find solutions.
And then also, as you asked, like, what about these all the generations people? It doesn't have to be only like about the generational problem, but often is. But I believe that it's also about like decision. If you want to, what's more important, if you want to work with somebody who is like super experienced, but he doesn't have or she doesn't have the leadership skills. So if you want her or him in the team, and I believe that it's moving. Like actually, that it's not only about the experience and about the qualities, but also that at least I feel it that people are talking more about this if this works on set or not.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just like talking in general. Like if I even just like I know of a lot of productions of films that did really well and that people really suffered a lot going through it. And I actually don't think I remember like the last time I watched somebody's film and they were just like this wonderful film. Someone just like, and you also, wow, it was really fun, like it was nice, or it was like really like safe. So I think like just like give examples that stuff can be both good and well managed.
Not that much suffering.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.